morning, I'm Mikey Oreta, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. Analysts say that the BSP has more room now to cut rates and support growth, with the U.S. Federal Reserve easing, giving central banks extra flexibility. Public Works Chief Vince Dizon orders a search for luxury properties of DPWH officials and contractors linked to ghost flood control projects. And in the United States, a federal judge blocks the Trump administration's move to deport dozens of unaccompanied Guatemalan minors. Global stocks extended their rally, with Wall Street hitting fresh records after the Fed's rate cut and a surprise boost for U.S. tech. Let's look at how global financial markets performed overnight. Wall Street's main indexes posted record high closes a day after the U.S. Federal Reserve delivered a quarter-point interest rate cut. Intel posted its biggest daily gain since October 1987 after NVIDIA says it will invest $5 billion in the struggling U.S. chipmaker.
I think the winners of the kind of NVIDIA Intel marriage or deal is the broader U.S. AI landscape, right? There had been some news earlier in the week about China restricting or banning U.S. chips to be used in some of their AI and just their broader tech landscape. And so to get kind of a doubling down on U.S. partnership, U.S. collaboration to build, the preeminent kind of AI ecosystem in the U.S., it's kind of a big picture view of things.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 0.3%, the S&P 500 up by 0.5%, and the Nasdaq higher by 0.9%. Over in Europe, markets also ended higher. The UK's FTSE 100 up by 0.2%, Germany's DAX up by 1.4%, and France's CAC 40 up by 0.9%. With the Federal Reserve easing, the pressure is now off the central bank, giving the BSP more flexibility to support growth. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas now has more room to continue easing policy to support economic growth. Nicolas Mapa, chief economist at Metropolitan Bank and Trust Company, says this after the U.S. Federal Reserve delivers a much-awaited rate cut. However, the BSP may remain cautious amid lingering inflation risks. Mapa also notes that a wider spread between the BSP and the Fed's key rates could attract foreign inflows, strengthen the peso against the dollar, and help limit imported inflation. A global ratings agency is keeping its vote of confidence in the Philippines, crediting a strong and stable banking system. The strength and stability of the Philippine banking system is among the main factors behind the favorable report from the Japan Credit Rating Agency. That's according to the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, which says the JCR cites the country's stable financial system as a key driver for the Philippines' sustained investment-grade credit rating of A- with a stable outlook. The agency also highlights strong loan growth, a lower non-performing loans ratio, and capital adequacy ratios that are well above both Philippine and international standards. BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. says the central bank continues to implement policies that promote robust capitalization and sound risk management among banks. He adds that these measures support financial stability and further build confidence in the domestic financial system. Holiday spending is about to be the bright spot in an otherwise moderate economy, and officials say it could make or break this year's growth target. Household spending this holiday season could help the Philippine economy reach its growth target, according to DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan. He says consumer spending, which makes up over 70% of GDP, could push economic growth to meet the government's 5.5 to 6.5% target for 2025. With inflation remaining low and interest rates still relatively weak, confidence in the economy remains strong. However, analysts warn that while holiday spending will boost growth. The economy also needs stronger job creation, remittance flows, and exports to hit the higher end of that target. A new tariff shock is already rippling through Philippine exports, with the U.S. market, the country's biggest buyer, showing signs of pullback. Some exporters report slower orders from the United States after the 19% reciprocal tariff took effect last month. That's according to the Philippine Exporters Confederation Incorporated, which warns this could bring outbound shipments this year lower than previously expected. PhilExport President Sergio Ortiz Luis Jr. says export sales may only reach between $105 and $110 billion this year amid weakened demand from the U.S. This falls short of the $115.49 billion export target under the updated Philippine Development Plan and is well below the $163.6 billion projection under the Philippine Export Development Plan. As online fraud evolves, Filipinos are turning to new digital tools for protection, and one anti-scam app is riding the wave. GoGoLook, the company behind the anti-scam app Who's Call, is projecting major growth in its Philippine user base this year. With 2.2 million downloads so far, the app aims to add 1 million more users by year-end, focusing on lower-income households that are especially vulnerable to scams. While traditional scams decrease, online fraud is on the rise, with 72% of Filipinos having encountered scams, often leading to psychological stress and damage to well-being. The app has been updated with AI-powered protection to combat scams, including tools like web checkers and spam blockers. Who's Call hopes these features, along with growing awareness of AI-driven threats, will drive expansion in the Philippines. Big-ticket projects will now face a higher bar for approval, a move that signals how the government is recasting its infrastructure priorities. The Investment Coordination Committee is set to raise the threshold for evaluating major projects, adjusting it to 5 billion pesos from the previous 2.5 billion pesos, which was set in 2017. DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan said the proposal has been presented to the President with final approval expected by the month's end. This change comes as inflation and economic growth have made the old threshold obsolete. The revised rules include stricter requirements for project submissions and more decentralized decision-making. While ODA-funded projects will still be handled by the ICC, the government plans to improve monitoring and evaluation of projects, including using random sampling for better assessments. The Home Development Mutual Fund, better known as the Pag-ibig Fund, is one of the country's most important financial institutions. Millions of Filipinos, from private and public sector employees to self-employed members, uniformed personnel, and overseas Filipino workers, rely on it for savings and, most importantly, for housing finance. To talk about the state of housing, the new programs, and what's next, we're joined by Pag-ibig Fund's CEO, Marilen Acosta. Good morning, Marilen, and thank you for being here with us.
Good morning, Mikey.
Okay, so Pag-ibig just posted record highs, 1.1 trillion in assets, 33.6 billion pesos in net income in the first half. Can you help put this into perspective for us? How was this year on year, and what drove this growth?
Year on year, our total assets grew from 1.07 billion to 1.14 this second half of 2025. And for our net income, last year we had a net income of 66.33 billion or 6.6, I think. Now we are at 33, but we expect to more than double this by end of the year.
Yeah, so relatively flat growth in the first half, but the expectation for the second half is bigger because housing takeouts are just do better in the second half. Can you tell us more about this, ma'am?
Yes, we normally, under standard normal conditions, we annualize our transactions times 12. But for our housing loan takeouts, our second half is actually equivalent to 7 months. So we are optimistic that by
Optimistic.
year end.
Okay. Do you have year-end targets, ma'am? And at this trajectory, are you looking to hit them?
Yes, for the end of 2025, we hope to hit 156 billion in total housing takeouts and our net income to more than 66 billion.
Okay. And how is this relative to your performance last year? So 156 billion total housing takeouts. How does that compare, ma'am?
Last year, our takeout was all just almost 130 billion. And we expect to hit the 156 billion with the launching of the expanded or PH programs.
When we talk about affordable housing, ma'am, how big is the market that Pag-ibig serves in terms of families, loan values, and demand?
The demand for affordable and low-cost housing is so huge. In fact, based on our portfolio, that's around 95%. 95% of our portfolio. For the affordable housing packages, that's just 10%. But for the low cost, this is the above minimum wage, but below the open market, that's 85%.
Ma'am, when we step back and look at the broader national housing backlog, how big is that today?
Based on the latest data released by PSA, the housing backlog as of 2022 is at 2.2 million. But this will increase to around 3.3, I think, by end of 2028.
Okay. How much of this gap can Pag-ibig realistically fill?
We hope to finance over 700,000 units by end of 2028.
And in today's prices, what does an affordable Pag-ibig finance home look like for the socialized housing sector, horizontal and vertical?
For horizontal socialized packages, that's up to 850,000. And for vertical, that's up to 1.8 million.
And as we have this 2.2 million backlog right now, and that's expected to increase to about 3.3 million by 2028, how can the private sector help to fill that gap?
The private sector plays a very critical role actually in housing, in solving our shelter program because they are the ones who generate the inventory. For Pag-ibig Fund, we are not involved in direct production, but we make affordable housing finance readily available. So we are in close collaboration with the private developers so that they will produce affordable housing units, and we are ready to extend end-user financing, affordable end-user financing to our Pag-ibig members.
And we need the private sector because demand for this sector is buoyant.
Yes.
Historically buoyant.
Yes.
But the production is low.
So low for the past 5 years.
Okay, how low would you describe production levels at present, ma'am?
Previously, up to I think 2020, our financing for affordable housing in terms of number of units is at 30%. But that has been reduced to just 10% this year.
Okay, well that's good. But looking back, looking at the bigger picture, ma'am, what continues to what's impeding growth in this segment?
First is the availability of affordable raw land. And then second is the permits and licenses, and also the affordable end-user financing. But for the affordable end-user financing, we have already addressed that because we have the 3% and the 4.5% interest rate. For the permits and licenses also, because when I talk to our accredited developers, they tell us that it takes a year to secure the permits and licenses. But with the 8-point agenda of our DSUD Secretary, Secretary Aliling. They are now in close collaboration with the developers to streamline the processing of permits and licenses.
And that's what the private sector needs to help fill those gaps, because they want to contribute, but the permits and licensing, that's a big setback. So pag naayos na yan ni Secretary Aliling,
mabilis na dapat.
Mabilis na dapat.
And actually, full digitalization.
Full digitalization.
I
Okay,
hope.
how's that going to help speed up the process?
It should speed up because we can easily see the status of the application through a dashboard if it's delayed. So,
how soon can we implement this, ma'am?
I think the plan of this is before the end of 2028.
Okay.
But for Pag-ibig Fund, we have already started digitalizing because we have our virtual Pag-ibig. The members can actually file their housing loan application through the virtual Pag-ibig and even the housing loan application.
Okay, and ma'am, what are the biggest changes within Pag-ibig that you're going to be implementing that's going to help change the game in the affordable housing sector?
Well, first is the recently launched affordable housing at 3%. It should address the affordability of our low-income or minimum wage earners. Second is we are providing developmental financing to our partner developers and to our key shelter agencies, just like the National Housing Authority and the Social Housing Finance Corporation, because they are the ones engaged in direct production. So we recently came up with a memorandum of agreement where these shelter agencies provide the land and we provide the financing for the construction of the housing units.
The financing is really key. And ma'am, just overnight, the U.S. Federal Reserve cut interest rates. That gives our central bank more room to cut rates as well. We're in the middle of an easing cycle. With these rate cuts, I expect housing financing, the rates to become more attractive.
Yes.
How much more attractive, ma'am? Can they be from here on out?
Well, for Pag-ibig Fund, our interest rates are super low. The 3%, the 4.5, and the 6.25
very low.
is already very low.
Pero for that market, any interest rate is still masakit. But yes, relative to all the other rates, it's a really good deal. Okay. What else can you tell us, ma'am? For overseas Filipino workers, do they automatically, are they automatically entitled to these rates as well?
Yes, all our overseas Filipino workers under the 3% or the pambansang kabahay, regardless of where the income decile they belong, regardless of their income, they are entitled to avail of that low interest rate.
How big is the OFW market for you, ma'am, at Pag-ibig?
For our registered Pag-ibig members, OFWs consists of around 10% of our membership, active membership. But in terms of housing loan availment, 20% of our borrowers are OFWs.
Okay. All right. And ma'am, lastly, what is your 5-year vision for Pag-ibig? Where would you like to see it in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, we would like to increase our portfolio for the affordable housing and the low cost. In fact, not only 5 years, we already have our 10-year plan. While I said a while ago that our exposure to affordable housing is at 10%, we intend to increase that to 50%.
Okay.
50%. That is why we are intensifying our collaboration with private stakeholders to produce the affordable and the economic housing so that we can deliver affordable units to our members. That's our dream, to increase our exposure to 50% of our housing loan portfolio will be at affordable housing.
Okay. Well, all the best to you, Ma'am Malen.
Thank you.
It's a very noble cause.
Thank you.
We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back. Let's take a look at how Asian markets are doing this Friday morning. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is in the green, higher by 0.7%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index is flat with a downward bias, lower by 0.1%. Shanghai's Composite is lower by 0.3%, and Singapore's Straits Times Index is flat with a downward bias. Here at home, Philippine stocks extended their winning streak for a third straight session on Thursday, lifted by the U.S. Federal Reserve's first rate cut this year. The PSE index rose 23 points, or by 0.4%, to close at 62.34, a three-week high with value turnover on the light side at just 6.9 billion pesos. The Fed's 25 basis point cut sent a positive signal across global markets. Analysts say lower rates tend to boost loan demand and may also give the BSP room to follow. Big picture, the market is still trading at its widest discount to Asian peers since 2009. Our market is just valued at 9 times forward earnings versus 16 times for the region. Foreign investors have been net sellers of about $133 million worth of equities this quarter as tariff risks and weak exports weigh on sentiment. Immediate support is seen at 61.50 with resistance at 63.50. Traders now turn to today's session to see if that momentum can hold. Let's check on how our equity market is doing as of 10:28. The PSE index is up by 0.5% to 62.66. Broader all shares index in the green as well, up by 0.3% to 37.46. As for the sub-indices, all are trading in the green except for the holding firms counter, which is down by 0.2%. Total volume is at 309 million shares, valued at 1.12 billion pesos. Market breadth is positive with 79 advancers, 56 decliners, and 49 stocks unchanged. In the currencies, the peso opened at 57.20 against the dollar, down from its previous close of 57.06. Companies are stepping up buybacks as a signal to investors, with another property giant joining the trend. Another blue chip is turning to share buybacks to signal confidence in its stock. Ayala Land Incorporated reports new purchases under its share buyback program. The company says it acquired a total of 3.3 million common shares yesterday. About 300,000 shares were bought at 26 pesos and 75 centavos each, while 3 million shares were acquired at 26 pesos and 95 centavos. After the transaction, outstanding shares stood at around 14.54 billion, while Treasury shares rose more than 2.6 billion, 16 billion rather. And it's not just property giants doing buybacks. One of the country's largest conglomerates is taking it to another level. A major conglomerate is putting its money where its mouth is, executing one of the biggest share buybacks ever on the local market. SM Investments Corporation is set to settle its 60 billion peso share buyback program on Monday, following transactions executed yesterday. In a disclosure, the company says its board of directors approved the program last February, covering up to 60 billion pesos worth of common shares. Management is authorized to set the terms and conditions of the buyback in line with the best interests of the corporation. The manufacturing industry is the backbone of any economy, turning raw materials into the goods that build our cities, feed our people, and power our exports. But here in the Philippines, manufacturing has struggled to keep pace, held back by high costs, global competition, and corruption in public projects that directly weaken the demand for local materials like steel and cement. With the United States now imposing a 19% tariff on Philippine exports, the pressure on our industries has only grown. Joining us to talk about the state of Philippine manufacturing and the reforms needed and the opportunities ahead is Elizabeth Lee, the chairperson of the Federation of Philippine Industries. Hi, Beth, and welcome.
Hi, Mikey.
Good to have you with us.
Oh, pleasure to be here with you.
Okay, so Beth, give us a temperature check. What is the state of Philippine manufacturing today with moderate growth, easing inflation, and, tame inflation and easing interest rates?
Well, it's still on expansion. So we have had our growth for the past 5 months. We're looking at growth with the PMI, which is the Purchasing Managers Index. So anything above 50 is an expansion, anything below 50 is a contraction. So right now in August, it's at 50.8. So it's still on expansion territory, but manufacturers are actually feeling the pressure because we are paying more for our inputs. And one of the things that we look for is the capacity utilization of a factory. So if your factories are at 100%, right now we are at 77% compared to about 85 in ASEAN. So we are lagging behind, but the good news is we are cyclical, so we're looking forward to
pickup.
Yes, a bit of a pickup at the end of the year.
Okay, so interesting. 77%, that's our capacity utilization rate. So we are operating below potential.
Yes, we are underutilized. So our factories are underutilized, and we always compare also with ASEAN. How are our ASEAN neighbors, faring versus the Philippines? So there's a lot of pressure also. And you mentioned tariffs. That's also part of the pressure.
How much of it is the pressure on the tariffs? How much of it because it's cyclical?
Well, tariffs will have pressure, although right now, based on the latest information, the negotiation has not been finalized yet. So there are some industries that would be more harmed or more affected than others. But still having said that, there are a lot of things that needs to be done or can be done to ease that pressure for manufacturers.
Yeah.
So
if you could just help us understand how much pressure the manufacturing industry is under right now. Can you, crystallize that for us?
Yeah, there's a number, and there's ones that are fixed costs, or some that are variable. So electricity costs, fuel costs, those are pressure. Tariffs also eat up on your margins. So if you were one who would be exporting, say, to the United States, where you have a 19%, although it's not finalized yet, that will tend to eat up on your margins. But there are ways that the government can actually use low-hanging fruit to help manufacturers ease that burden, ease that pressure. And one of them is the Tatak Pinoy Act, which is our, make our Filipino products great again type thing. That's the national strategy to do that.
And
Buy local,
improve the standards.
Local preference, yes, standards. So we're strict on following
and create more.
Compliant, yes, and create more. Because with create more, actually, your CIT or your corporate income tax is now 20%. Yeah. And you can actually deduct 100% of your electricity costs from your income tax that you're going to be paying. So those are the kind of things that you can kind of help mitigate the pressures surrounding local manufacturers and producers. So we're asking the government to accelerate and push that a little bit more.
Yeah, on the topic of the government, as much as they're supposed to be on our side, sometimes it's a little difficult. I mean, I'm talking about the corruption headlines. It's been headline and after headline of corruption. It's a hidden tax on businesses. How much of that corruption tax is burdening manufacturers?
If you were to eat, I'm sure, a lot of people are listening to the Senate hearings and the ones in Congress. They're talking about at least 25% of corruption tax. But if I were to just break it down, legitimate businesses who will decide to participate in bidding, you would have costs for even securing, let's say, the bid contract, your testings, and your some of the metrics that you need to hurdle. There will be additional costs. There would be delays. Even if you deliver the product, whatever that contract is, and the last signature person to sign that signature did not get his percentage, then you're going to have to pay to expedite the payment for that particular project. So all these things, actually businesses know, but cannot say it out loud.
How commonplace is it? How commonplace is it in the manufacturing industry, and where do people feel this corruption tax the most?
In substandard, selling substandard, purchasing substandard products, we as citizens with a ghost projects or with, substandard flood projects, the tax is not only on the producers or the manufacturers and the businesses that, that supply this, but also in the whole of, in the community. For us, we are being taxed because the money that is being used for these projects come from our taxes.
Yeah.
So,
so many whammies right there.
Yes.
And I wanted to bring something to fore. Beth, you were, during the former administration of Noynoy Aquino, you were tapped to become the head of customs. This after heading Campi for 7 years, you led a very successful anti-smuggling campaign for cars, and given that track record, this was during the administration of Pinoy, he wanted 2 females on his cabinet. You in tandem with BOC Commissioner then Kim Henares. Kim Henares accepted. You initially said yes, but then, you changed your mind after realizing how difficult that could be. Tell us about what gave you, tell us about that time.
Yeah, I actually said, I said yes, but my mom vetoed it.
Okay.
But that's a higher power there.
Yeah. Beyond that, you took it very seriously as you had initially said yes. So much so that you looked into it, you went to customs, and you learned about something called the asin tactic. Tell us about this asin tactic, Beth.
Yeah, I actually said yes. Actually, to the credit of then President Noynoy Aquino, he wanted the purse strings of the country to be held by 2 women. One was the BIR with Kim Henares, and then me with the customs. And I was really serious about it. We were talking. We even had a meeting with Kim Henares and then DOF Cesar Purisima. I actually visited customs, and I was saying, why don't we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Why don't we copy what works? For example, like Singapore, why don't we copy what works? So digitalization of processes, etc. So the main thing was there were computers. And I just said, well, we just computerized, streamline everything. And one of the ladies there was telling me, she said, Ma'am, hindi uubra ang computer. And I said, what? Why not? Tapos sabi niya, asin lang ang katapat niyan. That's what he said. So I didn't understand what it was, but what some bad actors do is just put salt on your keyboard and it'll rust. And some of them actually put food where the cables are. So self-sabotaging,
yes. People delaying progress, people delaying automation, because automation at the BOC would really help solve a lot of the flaws in the system.
Because you can't negotiate with a computer.
Exactly.
Basically.
So but they typically put salt, you're saying, on the keyboards to destroy things.
Yes.
And beyond that, it wasn't just salt that you uncovered, Beth. What were the other things that they were doing?
So really simple stuff, like you would put food where the cables are, so you would have, some
vermin would eat the cables intentionally.
Right. Yes, but I want to say this, and I agree totally with Secretary Vince Dizon, that the agency, there's a majority of the people in the agency actually are good. They want to do good, but sometimes their hands are tied. So what's happening right now is actually good news for all of us, for Filipino citizens. What is happening now? Cleaning the ranks.
Yeah, corruption is front and center.
Yes.
It's being talked about in multiple social economic stratas, and there is clamor for change.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Secretary Vince Dizon. What's your advice to him? I mean, you've led Campi successfully. You're now at the helm of the FPI. What advice would you give him?
I don't know if I could give advice, but
or one thing, from your own
one thing I want to
experience.
say really is what he's doing is really it's inspiring, and it really helps bring some confidence for the business community. Most especially for FPI, when we are so anti-smuggling, and we want to make sure that the standards, the steel, the cement, everything that comes in is compliant. Even local manufacturers will have to comply. So this is so important because now it is front and center. And he is like a, no fear kind of guy that just says it, doesn't mince words, and he's following the directions of the president himself, who actually blew a stop on this thing.
Yeah.
So I think pushing through with this and with the ICI, with former Babe Sing Son as a DPWH secretary, it's very important also to have teeth. And we rely on the justice system, of course, to sort of claw back the wealth that was stolen. And then we rely on the policymakers and our legislators to actually put forth reforms that will be long-lasting, so things like this don't happen again.
That's
so
important.
It's important.
Claw back the wealth that was stolen.
Yes.
Rallies this weekend. Will you be going to any of them, Beth?
We have plans to do that, but we stand with the people on this one, and we want to work together with the government to go after bad actors. So we are ready actually to work with the government. We have formed some small groups already with the BOC, with Commissioner Ariel Nepomuceno. We want to do the same with the BIR, but we are doing this also to help, government needs a lot of help. They want to do what is right. So FPI is here to actually help with that, anti-smuggling, and also with compliance on product standards.
What's the beat on the street with the FPI? How are the members, thinking about all of this as the corruption headlines take center stage day by day? What are their feelings right now? What are their reactions to all of this?
Well, I think the feelings is the same, enraged. But we already know these things are happening. But on the other side of feeling enraged is actually there is a positive, because we are moving towards the right direction. So with this front and center, then, with what, Secretary Vince Dizon is doing, substandard, even ghost projects, these things happen, but nobody's talking about it. But now it's front and center. Now you will know what kind of cement, types of cement is needed, or rebars or steel bars. What are the products or the aggregates that are needed to build? But it's not only those raw materials. You need to take a look at the total design as well. You can have good materials, but wrong design, it still falls through. So it's, corruption is so front and center now that it is so important, because it's like, corruption is like rust. It starts silent, but if you don't fix it, it'll corrode and eat everything up. So what that looks like solid is actually hollow inside. So this is so important. We are encouraged, very much encouraged, inspired by the secretaries that are doing their job now, a lot of job. But we are looking forward to concrete results after this.
Absolutely, concrete results. And as you mentioned, it's very good that the president blew the top on this and that people are really acting on it. Going back to the 77% capacity utilization rate for factories in the country, what is realistic? How high can we go from this current 77% rate, and what do we need to get there?
If we're looking at, so for example, what's tied to that is the PMI index. I think the highest was 57, and December of 2024 was 54.
Right now we're at 50.8, as you mentioned.
Right now we are at 50.8. So there really is, we've been there before, and we can go there again. So with all these things, reforms, that's, acceleration of create more, buy local, buy Pinoy. So we have to, prioritize local manufactured products. These kinds of things actually help. The other thing is logistics. We're working together with the BOC and also the PPA to actually take a look at and review, exorbitant charges on port charges, all charges that are tied to importation of raw materials. Unfortunately, we actually are also import dependent for some inputs, some raw materials for manufacturing. So that adds a lot of cost. Logistics alone is still about like 25 to 35 or 35% of product cost for the Philippines. If you compare that to the ASEAN, we are actually one of the highest. So that factor alone actually helps bring down the cost, bring down the pressure on Philippine manufacturing, and also help safeguard whatever margins that we have left.
Yeah. This second half, and as we approach 2026, what would you say are the biggest risks to manufacturing as you want to pull up your PMI score? what are the biggest things that would possibly hold that back?
Continuation of corruption, which is purchasing of substandard products. This will harm because this actually undercuts legitimate businesses. So if the legitimate businesses cannot participate in large projects, let's say with the government, then that's a lot that's taking out of what's being purchased or being manufactured locally. So I think if I were to have one word, it would be corruption. If we can really deal with corruption, anti-smuggling, do strict compliance for product standards, at the minimum, I think that can really help safeguard.
Offset a lot of the external pressures that we have no control over. So let's tackle what we can. Beth, lastly, manufacturing is about scale and systems, but leadership is about people. How do you balance pushing for industry-wide reforms while keeping businesses motivated and inspired during these very challenging times?
Yeah, with the reforms, I think bottom line is consistency. The one thing that businesses really do not like is changing rules in the middle of the game. So consistency, with that consistency, we can now plan better for the future. So on the industry level, if that is actually accomplished, businesses on the ground level will adapt to it. So I think we need to actually help ourselves and make sure that all these reforms are actually implemented and there would be consistency in the business climate.
Okay, thank you so much, Beth Lee, for your time, the
Thank you,
chairperson
Mikey.
of the Federation of Philippine Industries.
My pleasure, thank you.
All right, we're going to be taking a short break. Business 360 will be right back. The crackdown on flood control anomalies is widening, and it's now targeting the hidden wealth of officials and contractors involved. The Department of Public Works and Highways is going after other assets of its officials and private contractors linked to ghost and substandard flood control projects in Bulacan. These include mansions, luxury cars, and aircraft, among others. Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon requested the Land Registration Authority and other concerned government agencies for a list of properties under the names of 26 former and current DPWH officials. On Thursday, Dizon, together with COA officials, submitted to the Office of the Ombudsman a second batch of audit reports on the 4 ghost flood control projects. The private contractors are Wow Wow Builders and the joint venture between Top Notch Catalyst Builders Incorporated and One Frame Construction Incorporated. China's biggest EV maker is turning up the competition in the Philippine auto market as the shift to electrification gains speed. As the race accelerates, BYD introduces a new player in the mid-size SUV segment, combining innovation, sustainability, and strategic market positioning with a new Tang plug-in hybrid. Our mobility correspondent, G. Baroga, has the details.
Listening to their customers. That's the clear message from Bilyonaryo heir Jaime Alfonso Zobel de Ayala at the official launch of the BYD Tang plug-in hybrid in the Philippines. Its fully electric version already hit local roads last year.
AC Mobility and BYD are bringing world-class technology to the Philippines, reinforced by the infrastructure and support that make adoption a natural choice for Filipinos, giving them confidence that comes from knowing there is a complete ecosystem around them, from charging hubs to customer care to long-term sustainability. Now, we understand that behind every decision to embrace new mobility is a family, a livelihood, a lifestyle.
He adds, the new Tang PHEV offers the best of both worlds, and it's the biggest DMI model in BYD's local lineup so far.
The innovation and sustainability of BYD is known for, and with the added confidence and flexibility that Filipino customers are asking for. This is the super DMI SUV built for drives that matter.
Bob Palanca, Managing Director of BYD Cars Philippines, says this model is perfect for those who want a smarter, more practical ride. And yes, it's ready to take on the midsize SUV space, a segment usually dominated by Japanese and American brands.
With the Tang DMI, you can use the vehicle up to 100 kilometers with pure EV. And once your battery is depleted, the engine comes in and recharges the battery. Within Metro Manila, you're not going to spend a single centavo in fuel, as experienced by DMI owners.
Before the big reveal, BNC Mobility had the chance to take the Tang for a spin, driving all the way from Manila to Bataan. It was a true road test. City traffic, highways, steep climbs, downhill stretches, even rugged back roads. On the global stage, BYD is already a major player in the new energy vehicle game. And here at home, they've already sold over 10,000 units in the Philippine market.
Our role is to guide every market on its own journey, offering the right solutions at the right time, so customers can move forward with confidence toward full electrification.
In their fourth vehicle launch this year, BYD promises to still be at the forefront of battery electric vehicles coupled with DMI tech, which they say is the first step to experience it. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
The business community is mourning the loss of one of its most respected leaders. FINMA Group Chairman Emeritus Oscar Hilado has passed away. Starting as executive assistant to FINMA founder Ramon del Rosario, Hilado rose to become a key leader in the group's nearly 70-year history. His exceptional financial expertise guided FINMA through challenges and new opportunities, impacting both the business community and civic society. His wake will be held from September 20th to the 21st at Heritage Park in Taguig City, and September 22 to 23 at the 5th at Rockwell, with masses at 7 p.m. The final mass and interment will be on September 24th. Instead of flowers, donations can be made to the FINMA Foundation to support his advocacies. In other news, a high-stakes immigration clash is brewing in the United States, this time over the fate of dozens of unaccompanied children from Guatemala. A U.S. federal judge blocks the Trump administration from deporting unaccompanied Guatemalan minors with active immigration cases. This after reports came out that many parents had not consented to the move. Guatemalan authorities say they're willing to accept the returnees, but the travel must be voluntary. The U.S. government wants to deport 76 Guatemalan minors, but this has triggered legal challenges. And that's it for Business 360. I'm Mikey Oreta. Thank you for joining us, and keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel, and have a good weekend.